and on this radio show as well. Every Sunday from File 7. Hi, how are you, Mike?
I'm doing well. How are you, Tom?
I feel good.
How's your golf game?
I hit a 35-foot putt today. I shot an 81, 80 or 81, something like that. I didn't play very well. But I hit a 35-foot. I made a birdie.
I didn't play very well. I shot 80. There's like so many people right now that are going, Tom, you shot 80. And
well,
you didn't
Jake's looking through the window and thinking, well, I could do that left-handed.
Well, we know he could, but still.
Jake hits it a mile, and his all-time best, I think he said 66.
Yeah.
What's your all-time best?
67 at Ashland Country Club in 1986.
I think a 70 is my best.
Yeah, no,
I think I was 2 under one time playing a lousy course, but not a lousy course. I shouldn't bag on it. But somebody called me and said, "How you doing?" I said, "I'm 2 under." And I was like through 14. Never do that. Never take a phone call or say what your score is. And ended up shooting a 70. Should have been 2 or 3 under. But, but that's...
You and
I've done that a couple of times, right around the 70s.
We were at Crooked Creek, and we got to like 14 or 15.
Yeah.
And I was as sporadic as I always was. I was like 6 over. And I looked down, and you were driving the cart, and I glanced over because I was like, am I 6 or 7 over? And I'm looking, and I'm like 3, 4, 4, 3, 5, 4, 4. I'm like, Tom, you're 2 under. And you were like, yeah. And you, with kind of a voice, you go, yeah, I know. And we teed off on like 14 or 15.
And it was over.
It was over. And you shot 3 over. And you just kind of glared at me, and I was like,
we have completely different games. I'll be playing with Melby, hit it down the fairway. Melby's 3 fairways over, hit perfect shot, second shot on the green. Melby he's going back to the other fairway. We had them all up. Hey, what'd you do? Par. And we book as par. I mean,
that's because I chipped in from behind a tree.
That's kind of your game.
I banked it off the Portaloo.
You used to be able to hit it a long way, though. Good golfer, Mike Melby. You should pick. You haven't played it in a while. You've kind of given up the game.
Yeah, we'll try it again.
We need to back this summer. Do it again. Let's get to the starting gate. We pride ourselves of going through as many topics as we possibly can in the 2-hour show, and hit a lot of topics during the starting gate as well. And here's Mike Melby.
You know what? I'm going to start off with a feel-good story. It has nothing to do with Nebraska or anything. It has to do with a guy who has been living the dream for 13 years. He's played in 1,155 minor league baseball games. He was playing for Double-A Altoona, and the Pittsburgh Pirates called him up, and they said, how would you like to be a Pirate? We had an injury. Guy's going on the 60-day DL, and we need somebody on the roster. You're a guy. Drew Maggie, after 1,155 games over 13 seasons in Major League Baseball, is getting a chance to make his Major League debut sometime in the near future.
Those are great stories.
He's been up for 1 game, didn't get into the game. He's a career 254 hitter.
Publicity stunt? Is it just a publicity stunt?
It may be, because he's a 254 hitter.
I don't care. It's
45
still a good story.
home runs, 354 RBIs, 222 stolen bases, though, but that's over 13 years. But it's a great story. I think that's awesome.
Do you ever see the movie Mr. 3000? Or Mr. Because he's on the verge of getting 3,000 hits. He thinks he has it. I can't remember the guy's name that stars in the movie. They miscounted. So he has to unretire like 10 years later to come back and get his 3,000 hit.
Yeah.
And it's kind of entertaining. It's kind of like that. And that seemed like a publicity stunt type movie, but I enjoyed that. Mr.
All right. So after the feel-good story, I kind of want to keep it positive. So I'm going to go to the Nebraska softball team this weekend. They win the series over Wisconsin with a 2-1 win today. They won on Friday, 7-6 in extra innings. They lose yesterday, 4-3. They're 32-14, 12-5, second place in the Big Ten. Hunter Salas was in town, hanging out with Fred Hoiberg over the weekend.
Yeah.
By the way, Latrell Wrightsell Jr., about 3 hours ago, committed to the University of Alabama.
No, that's not true. Remember, he said they're a package deal. He and Hunter Salas, they're coming to Nebraska.
That ain't going to be
the
case.
That has to be a story that's false.
Unless Alabama wants to start recruiting Hunter Salas, which they're not doing. At any rate, so Wrightsell's off the board. Javian McCallum is off the board. Hopefully Salas is going to commit.
Josiah Alec was in town, I believe, this
Josiah
well.
Alec, Becca Alec's older brother.
Who's decent. I mean, he's a decent rebounder. He's not probably a starter, but he's a decent player.
Bigger than all of that to me is the young man that's in town today.
Who's
he'll be here tomorrow. His name is Koa Pete. He's a small forward. He's a 2025 recruit.
2025. He's a 5-star.
He's a 5-star, and he's ranked number 3 in the country.
Todd Pete's brother?
This is Todd Pete Jr.'s brother, Andres Pete, who Bo Pelini thought was coming here.
Todd Pete played here. Andres Pete played at Stanford. But
yes. Yeah, and then Todd Pete Sr. played in the NFL for like 9 years.
Right.
And then Jr. played here. And at any rate, this is their younger brother. His name is Koa. He is the 3rd best prospect in the 2025 class. He's in town visiting Fred Hoiberg and the Nebraska basketball program this weekend. Obviously, a long way to go to see if you can get him here. Still a couple of years away, but that's huge to even get the guy on campus. I mean, we talk about it all the time. And, one of these days, one of these guys, because Bryce McGowan's did it. And, by the way, Hunter Salas yesterday, you know who was showing him around? Bryce McGowan.
Bryce McGowan's. It looked like they were having fun, but everybody has fun on the visits. And then, of course, you add that to the fact that they were at the spring game.
Well, there. And to finish up with the positives, and then we'll get to the not-so-positives, Willis McGahee, 4-star linebacker out of Miami, commits on Saturday to Nebraska. Willis McGahee Jr., senior didn't save some college eligibility. But junior, one of the best linebackers in the country.
His dad, of course, a running back. Yeah.
Yep. And he has committed to Nebraska. Absolutely loves it. The jack linebacker position is something he has fallen in love with. Can't wait to play it. Husker baseball. Not sure what happened. I don't know if they drove to Iowa City, but if they did, evidently the wheels came off. They get absolutely manhandled this weekend. It was not close in any of these games.
It was
11-6 on Friday, 8 rip yesterday, 6-1 today. Nebraska's only run today, a Bryce Matthews home run, is 14th of the year to lead the game off. And that was it. So they fall to 21-14-1. They're now 7-5 in the Big Ten. And I'll tell you right now, barring them going on a no losing for the rest of the year streak, the only way they get in the regionals is if they wind up winning the Big Ten tournament.
What happened to Emmett Olson and Jace Kaminska?
I don't know.
Combined 17+ ERA over the last few weeks.
Yeah. I don't know. Something went sideways with it, but not good.
If there was one thing that I was confident about for Husker baseball is they hit a lot of home runs, which they continue to do, although this weekend not so good. But I thought Friday, Saturday were covered as far as pitching was concerned. That's not the case right now. Iowa's a really good baseball team. And they came in this weekend. I know a little down in the standings, but they had won what they're with the sweep. They're like 28-9 or something like that. Yeah. That's a good baseball team, but that's also a terrible weekend for Nebraska baseball.
Yeah, this was literally the one thing that could not happen. Yeah. They have 2 midweek games this week. They're up in Omaha to take on the Mavericks, who have owned them this year. On Tuesday, then on Wednesday, they host South Dakota State. And then next weekend, they host one of the worst teams in college baseball, Minnesota. So we'll see what happens there. Hopefully
they lost in a walk-off today. I was watching that game in studio earlier to Illinois. Yeah. Illinois won in a walk-off.
Nice.
But I'm always happy if Minnesota loses.
I am too.
I don't like Minnesota. I don't know why. They would, if I were to rank my hatred in the conference, they would be in the top 5.
Oh, yeah. I would say so. Playoffs are going on, NBA and NHL. NBA, the Heat are up 2-1 on the Bucks. Celtics up 2-1 on Atlanta. Sixers swept the Nets. The Knicks are up 3-1 with the win today over Cleveland. Denver up 3-0 on Minnesota. Game 4 tonight. Lakers are up 2-1 on Memphis. Kings up 2-1 on Golden State, although that game is minute 46 to go, and Golden State's got a 3-point lead in game 4 in that series. And then Toronto and the Clippers are a game away from elimination. Suns are up 3-1 in that series. In the NHL, pretty much every series is sitting at 2-1, barring an earlier.
Now, you're a big hockey guy. You watch probably the NHL almost over every sport, right?
Not a chance.
Really?
I didn't follow hockey before I started calling Stars games.
I did not know. I thought you did become a big hocky fan.
I like it
in the NHL.
No.
Because of your Stars connection.
No.
Interesting.
No.
Even after the Stars.
Yeah, I stopped watching hockey. I just it.
Well, I'm
it's
right
not
there
my
with
thing.
you. For me, I like going to live
I
hockey.
like playing hockey.
I loved going to Stars games and listening to you. But I just can't see the puck on TV. I just can't see it.
It's tough to follow. And I learned how to watch hockey on TV based on where my vantage point.
Who taught you how to watch hockey on TV?
I did
self-taught.
But the reason I did is because of my vantage point. Even at the ice box was not great. I mean, I'm in the northwest
you're
corner
up
of the
there
building.
In the clouds, yeah.
And so by watching the way the game was played, and of course, in my Stars career, I called 681 games, and I've called another 40 or 50 over the course of years for various other
hockey games.
Oh yeah, but you learn by the way the guys are skating and what's going on the ice, where the puck is. So I can watch a game on TV and I know where the puck is based on the way guys are skating and how things are going. So I like just literally through osmosis of understanding the game in, game out with Stars through 3 head coaches and all that stuff. I finally figured it out. So.
Real quickly, just to watch sports. Obviously, football is the most entertaining for me to watch. College football, then the NFL. And I would go maybe NBA third. Baseball is boring to me. I like to watch baseball, maybe late in innings. If I'm never watch a full baseball game, but if it's a good game, I'll check in the 7th inning and then stay tuned. Hockey would be way down after that. Heck, horse racing might be ahead of hockey for me.
We are 13 days away from the first Saturday in May, and I'm going to call my shot now. Forte is going to win the Derby.
All right. I have a buddy who is a doctor, a surgeon, but he owns a couple of racehorses, and he's a great handicapper. Al Linderman. I'm going to have him on the show right around Kentucky Derby time.
Absolutely.
Because I think that would be our anniversary.
It's like the week
I'm going to
after.
get you a cake. There's cupcakes in the other room. But our anniversary is coming up.
Yeah,
right?
It is.
1 year of doing this show together, Husker Rewind.
Yeah. No, we got to have him on during the Triple Crown. Now, next weekend is going to be our last show before the Derby.
I'm not going to be here next week. I'm going to Tampa.
You're going to Tampa.
I'm going to Tampa. My buddy's got a place right on the bay, and we play golf and have an adult beverage or 16. And it's just fun. Tampa is a fun place to be. St. Pete is where he lives.
Nice.
Anything that you would like to hit before we get to Sip? Sip will be here within 20 minutes or so. I think he's going to be in studio at least until 6:00 tonight.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you a little bit about what do you think of the Herbie makeover? Because they had gone, originally they had the old Herbie who was kind of a little bigger, more of a blob. And then they went to the new Herbie who was more muscular and fit. And now they've gone back to the older version of Herbie.
But he's slimmed down.
He's slimmed down a little bit. He's still fatter than the previous Herbie.
Yeah, he's pretty barrel chested, but at least he doesn't have a beer belly.
The reports have been good. I thought this one has blonde hair.
Yeah.
And he's got a corn cob. I don't know if I like the corn cob in the back pocket.
I don't know. I get it. The blue eyes look good. The weird thing about the actual mascot though, is he's got like dimples and big cheekbones. So it almost looks like he's got a growth on either side. But I like it. It's traditional. I thought it was well done. Could there have been some little tweaks to make it a little bit better? Probably. But at the end of the day, I like this version better than the one that it replaced.
We'll be talking to John Gaskins next hour in the 6:00 hour. His buddy actually was the Herbie yesterday.
Really?
Or Saturday in the spring. Yeah, that would be yesterday because today's Sunday.
Yeah.
He did. He was Herbie. He's not going to do it during the season. Apparently there was a Herbie emergency. And you feel bad sometimes saying that there's a guy in there because kids get mad if they know that there's a guy in there, but there's a guy in there.
Yeah.
And this guy was the Herbie yesterday. He won't be doing it during the regular season, but Gaskins is really coming on to talk about Frank Solich and his memories of Frank Solich. What did you think watching Frank yesterday?
I was more interested in the press conference on Friday. I watched the whole thing live, and he seemed to transform during that press conference from very uncomfortable to
Frank's always uncomfortable. And when Frank's comfortable, he's still uncomfortable.
But it felt like he was very nervous, very anxious, very everything that you would expect him to be. And then he exhaled. and somebody asked him about the curse, and and he said it before, but he's like, trust me, if I would have done a curse, there'd be a couple other people that'd be in some trouble. And that,
Steve Peterson.
Yeah. And all of a sudden he just, and by the end, he volunteered. I should have done this. I got to get back in the fall for some games.
Right.
Like he all of a sudden.
Yeah, he said he's coming back for games.
He seemed to embrace the fact that he means a hell of a lot to the state.
Yeah.
And he did a lot of great things. I didn't necessarily disagree that, maybe there could have been somebody better out there to coach the team, but the way it was handled was just a joke and horrible.
As long as we've been down that road before.
Yeah.
The Frank Solich firing, I thought he should have been fired in 2003.
Was there too, but
I just didn't think it should be Bill Callahan that replaced him. It was obviously the case that Steve Peterson didn't have a plan. And we can talk about this with Sipple coming up. I'll tell you my Frank story that I've told you, I think 100,000 times, and listeners have heard it 100,000 times as well. It's the week of the Oklahoma game. And we both worked for the Husker Sports Network back in the day, or the Pinnacle Sports Network, or whatever it was called at that particular time. And as we all know, they were 5-hour pregames.
Oh, yeah.
They started 5 hours before, and I think they still do, right? They're at least 4 or 5 hours before the game. Yeah. I think the first segment was out of the shower with Adrian Fiala. Literally, he would get out of the shower, then call the station or be at the station, and that was the first segment.
I was going to say, I hated 11 a.m. kickoff games because I had to be at the studio by like 5:30.
Right. So one of the segments that I did was like behind enemy lines, or where you go it was a segment that I reviewed the history of the Nebraska-Oklahoma series.
Yep.
And the subject that day was trick plays.
Yep.
And so I had to interview Frank Solich about trick plays. And so I had to go to practice, and the practices back then weren't as big as they are now. There were, maybe 10 media members there, whatever. But I'm standing there with my little cassette player, scared to ask these questions because I knew Frank would just be completely annoyed by them. And I'm asking during the week, and now that I think back, this is really dumb, that for the Nebraska-Oklahoma series, which was, involved a lot of trick plays, Keith Jackson or Buster Rhymes or the flea flickers that were pulled off, or the Bumble Rooski, or whatever Rooski it might have been back in the day. I'm asking Frank Solich in front of the media 100 questions about trick plays, because Frank would only give you a 3-word answer.
Yep.
So I knew to edit some sort of sentence together from Frank, and I was hoping to get at least a paragraph that I would have to ask a bunch of questions about trick plays. And finally, he just says, I'm not answering any more questions about trick plays. And I put that in there, by the way. And as it turned out, 41 flash reverse.
Yeah, Mike Stunts.
Hit Thunder Collins to Stunts, back to Eric Crouch for the touchdown that wins the game. And I'm thinking back, I didn't ruin it. I mean, I'm sure Oklahoma wasn't listening to my segment in the pregame to find out if Frank was running the trick play.
If I remember right, there was something, you saw Stoops on the sideline, and I don't know if a reporter saw him or if he just said it and you could kind of read his lips, but he's like, that's our play.
Right.
Because Jason White tried the same play or a similar play, but he literally fell down and twisted his knee, and
it would have worked.
It would have worked.
It would have worked for them. He said they just got a first down. He talked about it during the game. He was up in the studio during the spring game talking about it. He said it worked out perfectly. They had just gotten a first down and set up perfectly. And Stunts, that was really the only play he had during his entire Nebraska career, and that was a perfect pass.
It was, and I remember the post game. Because I was doing the scoreboard show, and so we had interviews and all that type of stuff, and it was the locker room show, and Gary Sharp interviews him about the play, and he said, well, I hope to make many more. I hope that's not, the one and only play that I'm known for at Nebraska. And it is. As he said that, I'm like, man, famous last words. Yeah, that's you just ruined it. So
yeah. So that was my Frank Solich experience. I had a few run-ins with, and not bad experiences, but Frank just didn't like talking to the media in general.
No.
So that was my Frank story. John Gaskins will be on the show next hour to tell Frank stories.
Where were you when you found out that he had been fired? Do you remember?
I'm trying to think. I don't remember.
I actually
was.
remember because I was bugging.
It wasn't like OJ or
no, but the only reason I remember is
Elvis
because
or something like that.
when I announced out at Eagle Raceway, I announced with a gentleman by the name of Rick Schwieger, who was the voice of Memorial Stadium at the time, and he's now Rick Allen on NASCAR's coverage on NBC, and has been for the probably the last 6 or 7 years. And I'm bugging him. I'm like, "What's going on? You got to tell me. You got to tell me." And he's like, "I don't know nothing. I don't know nothing. I don't know nothing." And so when the news broke, I was calling a Lincoln Stars game at the Mid-America Center
in
Council
night?
Bluffs. Yeah.
It was at night?
It was that Friday night.
It's like 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night?
8 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night. The news broke.
Do you remember what night it was for some reason?
I want to say it was that Friday night. It was the Friday night of Thanksgiving weekend.
That's right.
Because
they had just beaten Colorado, right?
Yes, they had just beaten Colorado. And I was on the air, and it was during one of the intermissions, and my board op got a hold of me and said they just fired Solich.
And we thought that the Colorado game maybe had saved his job, and that you don't fire a 9-3 coach.
Yeah.
And the fact that, McBride had finally moved on and Tenneper had finally moved on, and you had Bo Pelini as your new defensive coordinator. Yeah. He had reshuffled the staff.
Yep.
Barney Cotton was
calling plays.
Yeah, Barney Cotton was calling plays. And we thought, at least I thought, that maybe he deserved a chance just because he had reshuffled his staff. And I've said this many times, even on these airwaves. I don't blame Frank totally, even though I thought he should have been fired. And I was probably wrong, knowing what happened 20 years later to Nebraska football. It was terrible. But I didn't think it was completely his fault, because you could tell there were coaches on that staff that had already won 5 national championships in some cases, or at least been a part of 3.
Part 3, yeah.
And you could tell that the desire to get on a plane to go recruit in Florida or Texas or California was just not there anymore. Yep. So when he reshuffled the staff, I thought we deserved to see the staff together for a while.
And I thought so as well. Whether you agreed or disagreed with him being fired, at the hindsight says he should not have been, because of the disaster that Nebraska football became for 2 decades. Yeah. But at the same time, it's one where you've got to sit there and go, why didn't Steve Peterson have a plan? Like
he did. Bill Callahan
no, he didn't. Houston Nutt was his plan. And I'm like, that was a bad plan. Yeah. So I don't know.
It was a disastrous plan, as it turned out.
I have great news, breaking news, actually.
You do?
I do. Stephen M. Sipple has been cited.
Breaking news. I guess he's going to join us on the air. We're hoping to get him for a couple segments, maybe all the way up. Now that he's here, he can't leave. We can just lock the door.
Exactly. We're going to lock the door.
And he'll be here till 6 o'clock, hopefully. Stephen M. Sipple next. He's Mike Melby. I'm Tom Stevens. It's Husker Rewind. More after this.
Repeat after me. I will not touch the fuse box.
I will probably not touch the fuse box.
Sip, do you remember what happened last time?
Yeah, I remember.
What happened?
Half of the and my chicken condo went haywire.
That's right. The chickens ran wild. So what do we do instead?
Call Joe at Ambition Electric and let him handle everything. Look, saved on speed dial.
Ambition Electric, 402-217-3415 or online at ambitionelectric.com.
Hi, Sean Callahan here with GMC, and we are pulling off of this gigantic event. Lots are starting to fill. Great deals for you waiting in Louisville. Brand new GMC Sierra Light Duty and new Silverado Light Duty trucks. All trim levels have up to $4,000 in discounts. That's right, up to $4,000 off all new light duty trucks right now at Koppel. So do not wait. Now is the time to buy a new truck. So stop on in or visit us online at koppelcars.com. You must have a trade-in and finance with Koppel. All deals with approved credit.
The best way to learn about Southeast Community College is to visit. And you can check out our spaces before you visit in person with a virtual campus tour. An opportunity to see our campuses in Beatrice, Lincoln, and Milford as you learn about our programs and areas of study. There are virtual tours of our learning centers too. We can even take you on a personalized virtual tour. Learn more on our website, southeast.edu/visit SCC. SCC, your path to puzzle.
You finally finished your man cave in the basement. Brand new furniture, TV, and all of your collector's items. You're ready for football season. You were so excited until one bad rain and it is all ruined. Don't risk a flooded basement and countless dollars in damages when it can be avoided. Call John Henry's today for a free sump pump estimate for your home.
435-5555. John Henry's Plumbing.
I was hiring CDL drivers for Ready Mix Concrete, Husker Concrete, and Beatrice Concrete. Nebco offers great pay, medical, and retirement benefits, paid time off, and we pay for CDL training. Apply today to earn an average total compensation of $50,000 to $60,000 your first year driving. From Nebco's beginnings in 1908, it's the employees that have formed the company's solid foundation. Start your career today. Visit nebcoinc.com. That's NEBCOINC.com.
Get first started with Farrell's Extreme Body Shaping. Weighed in over 300 pounds. Now, less than a year later, I'm under 200 pounds for the first time since high school. I'm stronger, I'm healthier, and it all began with the Farrell's 10-week challenge. 10 weeks of kickboxing, strength training, and guided nutrition coaching to help you reach your fitness goals. Their next 10-week challenge begins on April 8th. If you're wanting to change your life like I am, fm.com and click on Enroll Now on the homepage. Plus, get a promo code for a discount just for ticket listeners. Farrell's Extreme Body Shaping.
Wings fans, 89-cent wings are back on Tuesdays at Buffalo Wings and Rings in Lincoln. Enjoy the best wings in town for boneless or traditional at a price that makes the whole family. And now at the Williamsburg Village Wings and Rings, you can enjoy $1.50 tall boys in Bud Light, Coors Light, Busch Light, and Michelob Ultra every day after 7 p.m. and all day on Sundays. Get to Wings and Rings today and make sure to stop by on Tuesdays for 89-cent wings.
If you're in Lincoln, Waverly, or the surrounding area, listen up. Select Plumbing gets it right the first time on a variety of issues for your home and business, including general plumbing, water heaters, faucet and fixture repair, underground sewer and water repairs, backflow testing, and more. Keep your property free from leaks and other issues. Call today for a free estimate at 402-560-6197. Plus, they're hiring service plumbers. If you're in Lincoln, Waverly, or the surrounding area, contact Select Plumbing to inquire at 402-560-6197.
The Sunday Rewind is coming your way next.
60% of the time, it works every time.
On 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Welcome back. Tom Stevens, Mike Melby. I think we're on the actual airwaves of 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. The Royals lost. Boy, they don't do that very often. 4-3 today. The Royals fall. It's been a tough start to the 2023 season for the Kansas City Royals. But, hey, you win 20 in a row, and you're right back in it. So it's no panic time.
And like I told you, I'm a Texas Rangers fan. I'm used to horrible baseball. I granted, 6 of the wins are against KC, but, like, they took a series against the Astros. No. I don't even know what's wrong down there.
I don't either, but it feels like they don't have a lot of talent. So there's breaking news. The Royals fall 4-3. Hey, good news for us. Steven M. Sipple in the studio. He actually got out of bed and came down here, and he's doing the show live in the studio.
I thought he was going to be wearing sweats. I was hoping.
I've been up for 3 hours.
Okay, there you go. How are you, Steve?
Doing fine.
Good. What did you think of the spring game yesterday?
Well, that's an open-ended question.
Well,
just on their show.
Yeah.
Texted with him, but I didn't. You know what my whole thing was? I don't want to. He's got so many people coming at him, so I didn't want to. And he was hard
to get close to, wasn't he, Frank?
Yeah, kind of.
I mean, he just doesn't. I mean, he wanted to be a football coach, but he didn't like. He was kind of similar to Pelini a little bit in that way. He didn't want to do all the media stuff, and it was very uncomfortable for him. You could tell he was a little uncomfortable this weekend.
Oh God. Well, I mean, I just think that he doesn't. You know, everybody's got a little different personality, and there's people who don't like the limelight. There's people who love the limelight. Yeah. They thrive in the limelight. But it would be, I think, for some people, it's horrifying to think for 2 days you're going to be the center of attention. It would be horrifying for me. So I'm never critical of people who are more they avoid the limelight a little
We
bit.
were sharing our memories of Frank getting fired, and that weekend it was a Friday night. Mike was actually doing the Stars broadcast.
I was in
Lincoln
Omaha.
Stars. He was in Omaha.
So it was a Friday night or Saturday night.
It was a Saturday.
Saturday
It
night.
might have been
Saturday night.
Saturday.
Okay,
night.
so
It was a Saturday night.
So yeah, so we knew it was coming. I was trying to get a hold of Schwieger, and I'm like, "What's
Really?
going on? What's going on?
Yeah.
What's going on?" And he's like, "I don't know nothing. I don't know nothing." And so it was first or second intermission.
Okay.
And my board op calls me,
Uh-huh.
and he says, "It just happened." And so I come back after the intermission report. I'm like, "Welcome back to the Mid-America Center. Stars and the Lancers tied at 2, and breaking news out of Lincoln, Nebraska.
Yeah.
Frank Solich is no longer the head coach." And I just remember it from that standpoint because I was literally calling a game when it happened.
That's
So I asked
interesting.
Tom, where were you? Because it was so
Where were you, Steve?
memorable for me.
I was not equipped to cover that, but I did. I had to, and it worked
That's
out.
happened to me in radio,
Yeah.
where somebody gets fired and you have to come in and do breaking news, and you go, "I really shouldn't be on the air."
I know.
but
I
guess will."
remember. I always tell the story. I was horrified. I wasn't in best shape. I wasn't in horrible shape, but but around my desk was the publisher, the managing editor, the associate managing editor, the sports editor, and they all wanted to know how we're going to do this.
Right.
And you kind of flip into action, and it worked out. But as far that aside, it was still what I always remember about it is monumental. I mean, it was earth shattering, and it felt the magnitude of it was incredible. And then over the years, now, you get to the Frost firing, and it didn't feel 1/100th as big as that. The impact lessened as the firings transpired. That's the way I always see it. It's amazing. When Riley was fired, it was just kind of like, all right, fire him, have a press conference, and I'll write a column, and that'll be it.
How many times have you thought about it? If Frank isn't fired, what happens to Nebraska football? What do you think would have happened to Nebraska football?
I think
if
he would have. I'm of the mind that he did a good job of changing his staff.
Right. And the older part of his staff really didn't want to do it at the same level anymore.
Yeah,
right?
it was getting to be that way. Yeah. And he changed it up after the 7-7 season in 2002. And I thought the restructuring was good. And I thought Frank, during the 9-3, they showed a lot to me. And then they showed a lot in the bowl game, I thought. But it wasn't going to work with Nebraska football. It's always something, and it's usually pretty complicated. And in this situation, it wasn't going to work with Frank and Peterson. That's the thing you got to acknowledge. Yeah. It just wasn't going to work,
right.
Tom. It wasn't going to work.
But it wasn't he would have had to win anybody in Peterson.
I don't know about that. I don't know.
It didn't work with Callahan, that's for sure.
No, I know, but there was he had a personal vendetta. Peterson had a vendetta.
Yeah, Sean Callahan, your cohort, your boss, your guy, said that there was some. I think
God, it sounds weird for him to call me my boss.
I'm sorry, I shouldn't say it. Your cohort, your coworker, said there was something that he had said. Apparently, Frank had said something to Steve Peterson. No, Jim Rose told me this.
Yeah, probably Jim knows.
Jim Rose actually told me this, that when they were both coaches, when Peterson and Solich were both coaches on the staff, that Frank had treated, according to Steve, Steve in a way that he didn't think was appropriate, and he held a grudge.
Oh yeah, there was a grudge. There's something that happened. I don't know what it was.
Yeah,
but I just know in 2002, was it 2002 when Peterson was hired as an AD, that staff knew they were in trouble. I mean, they knew right away. That was. It's sort of. You have these conversations and people are always like, what are you talking about? Well, that's the fact. It wasn't like I'm not speculating. I used to talk to Frank all the time, talk to those staff members all the time. And then things happened that, like, for instance, before the season 2003, all the assistants contracts were reduced to 1 year and ended right after the season. There's all these things that were happening that just showed them that we better win 10.
The best thing that probably could have happened for Frank is that Tom retires from head coaching and goes right to the athletic department and becomes the athletic director. Kind of like Bob Devaney protecting Tom.
Oh, God, that would have helped, yeah. But it didn't happen, and there's not much you could do about it.
No, it was never going to work.
I don't think it would have worked with Steven with Peterson and Frank. I don't think it would have worked.
There was a game yesterday.
Yeah, kind of.
What you've covered it. You've talked a lot, and you'll continue to talk a lot about it on Early Break tomorrow, and you'll write about it for On 3. By the way, Stephen M. Sipple of Early Break. But what's your initial? I mean, because it's so hard to learn stuff from the spring game. It's hard to take anything that you really see, even the 8 turnovers, which is a concern, and say, well, you can justify anything based on, personnel changes and new quarterbacks. And did you get anything valuable from it?
Yeah. I mean, I thought, yeah, I did. I think you can, especially when they're tackling. And I would start with the quarterbacks, and you can, that's an easy place to start, but
Sims look good.
Yeah, it makes sense to start. Sims looked like he ran the operation well. So you look at that, right, Mike?
Yep.
I mean, how clean does it look? He had a fumble exchange problem with the fullback, but he completed 9 of 13. And I thought he looked good throwing it. And he runs a 4.4. Now he never got loose, but he spun out of that tackle.
4.4. I guess I didn't know that he was that fast.
Yeah, he's super fast. Yeah. And, no, I like that picture. Casey's going to have his hands full getting that job back. And so I think it'll be a good race. It's great. It's a great thing to have those two guys.
Oh, big time.
So that's my biggest takeaway. Was Sims. I seen him in person, seeing how that looked, seeing how he handled it.
He looked good.
Oh, he's calm and he can handle this. He can handle it.
You watch a quarterback throw a ball, and there's guys, and you just go, oh, okay. He could play outfield and throw a guy out at home from the warning track because of the way he throws. His touch is good. It'll need to get better, but he has the ability to throw that 25-yard out from the opposite hash like it's nothing. I mean, it's it's one of the most fluid, smooth releases I've seen, and I'm like, oh, okay. That's something I don't know. Though. I mean, Adrian Martinez was close, but not quite to the point where this is this nice, smooth.
And if you guys watched other spring games, nobody came close to playing like Nebraska did with the live quarterbacks and hitting each other.
Right.
I mean, Wisconsin's practice was a borderline joke.
Yeah,
from what I saw.
Yeah, they changed coaches, but Chris wouldn't even have a spring game, really. Paul Chris.
Yeah.
So
it seems like a big risk because then. Corcoran goes down, and I'm thinking this is not good. If Corcoran's injured and seriously injured, you have to rethink this whole live practice thing. But, I mean, that could have happened in any way.
That's the thing. I battle that. I mean, I go back and forth on that. Sometimes, I mean, a lot of coaches will say if the guys are just cutting loose, they're less apt to have an injury if they're just playing football as opposed to pulling up, thudding. So I know I didn't think about that too much. I actually got a lot out of it. Yeah. I mean, it's hard to evaluate a spring game because usually in a football game, you're just watching 11. In a spring game, you're trying to watch 22. Yeah. So you miss a lot. Yeah. So I'm going to have to go back over and watch it again and watch more of the defense.
One guy that stood out to me, and he did to everybody, Mikhail Sherman. MJ Sherman.
Oh, MJ Sherman.
And I will tell you right now, on the field was one thing. The post game is where I was more impressed with him. And
he seems like a captain type, doesn't he?
Yeah, he literally. I mean, I was around some Stars teams that had guys that were they ran the locker room.
Yeah,
Danny Ehrman, when they won both cups in 02-03, they had talent. I mean, you had future Olympian David Backus and the junior player of the year Ryan Patolny and one of the best goaltenders. Yeah. You had a good team. But that team, without Danny Ehrman, they would have lost in the first round of the playoffs. But he owned that team. Yeah, he ran that team. And to me, MJ Sherman came across as a guy that is literally going to sit there. He's going to have help. He knows it. But he's like, no. I'm having the time of my life, and this is my team.
Yeah.
And without pulling an Alonzo Verge and saying it's my team before he's done it. But that's kind of what came across.
He had 4 tackles and 1.5 tackles for loss. So he looked good and he flew around. But we watch every spring game. And so you think, well, AJ Bush had a great spring game. So what does this really mean? But it felt like there were a lot of younger guys. I don't remember that many young guys having great spring games before. Like AJ Rollins stood out to me. Princewell stood out. Maverick Noonan as a true freshman.
Yeah.
Cameron Linhart, I thought made 4 tackles. I don't remember the last time I watched the spring game and saw that many younger guys stick out.
You got the key guys. I mean, those were the critical players. Linhart and Princewell getting a start. You know, they played with the number 1 defense, and they look good. I mean, they were disruptive. They got some guys there. Now, how disruptive will they be as true freshmen? I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say, but there's future there, and we know that. It's just wonder what the present will look like in the fall.
Here's what I want to ask you about the defense specifically. Obviously, they've got some pieces to work with. What'd you think of the 3-3-5 and the way Tony White attacked the offense?
Again, Mike, I mean, I'm going to have to look at it again, but they attacked.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. I talked to a few recruits after the game, and that's the word they kept using. It's an attacking defense. Yeah. It's interesting because it's based on leverage. So it's a little different. It's a little different than a lot of defenses. But I thought they attacked, and I thought, the thing I saw was an attacking defense, and they had a lot of guys around the ball. That's what you look for, especially as a layman. And they have some material there. I mean, they have some guys that, like, I would add Judy to the list of Elijah Judy.
Yeah. Strip sack that led to a touchdown, even though that was not a touchdown. Can we all agree that?
Oh, God, it's a terrible call.
Yeah.
I mean, it's awful.
I understand what he's doing. He's trying to.
I thought they were joking around. I was like, are they really going to call that a touchdown?
And it was 21-0. He was trying to get the Whites or the Reds back in.
No, I don't know what they're looking at there. But they anyway. Judy is active and good.
Yeah,
now, he'll be fine.
Yeah.
And he'll probably be. And he started, and he rolled his ankle last week too. So I wondered if he would even play. Not only did he play, he looked pretty good.
Yeah.
So I think he might have played through some pain, which is good.
You've talked to Casey Thompson a lot, and we know he's like one of those guys, first one in, last one to leave in the film room. I don't think he's going to give up on this gig. As good as Sims looked, this feels, and I don't know what the coaches are thinking. That probably changes everything in what they're thinking. But I know Casey won't give up without a fight.
I don't think so. No. He's, first of all, people wonder, is he going to stick around? I've gotten no indication he's going to leave. He's got an NIL deal.
He seems like he has that confidence too. Like, bring it on.
He's got an NIL deal too, and a good one. And he does got confidence. So unless his meeting with Rule wouldn't go well, Rule's going to meet with everybody. I imagine he'll meet with Casey.
He said he's going to meet with everyone.
Yeah. So I think it'll go. You never know how all that's going to transpire, but I think if you're a Nebraska fan, what you hope is Casey is here in June, and starts the competition starts in June.
Yep.
And then Casey will be throwing in what we'll call quote unquote unorganized, 7-on-7 type settings that are actually pretty organized. And then I think that's when he makes his push, and it gets real. That's what I hope happens, and everything I've seen and heard suggests that's what's going to be the case.
Well, and let's face it, this is the first time in 7 years, there's been even a remote quarterback competition.
It's beautiful.
I know.
You have two guys who have started 20+ games.
Yeah.
Right.
They're both good. I mean, they're both good. Now, the one thing you got to add about Sims, and I agree with you what you're saying, Mike, but as you're talking about him, he threw a lot of picks. He threw 23 picks at Georgia Tech. Yeah. So, and they asked him this spring to cut that down. You got to cut down on the picks and throw for a higher percentage. I think he was a 53% passer. So he's got work to do, but it looks like he did some work.
Yeah.
Like I said, it probably comes down to decision making and how that's, you can coach all that. There's stuff you can't coach. Like you can't coach 4-4 into 40. You can't coach 6'4", 220. And you can't coach, and sometimes it's hard to coach that sort of arm strength.
Well, and what you just said about you can't coach his rushing touchdown, you can't coach that.
No,
that's just pure athletic ability.
Big guy.
That size and athletic ability.
Oh, he's good. Yeah, he's good. They're in good shape at quarterback.
Yep.
Let's get to break. Can you stick around for another 15 minutes or so?
Yeah.
He is, of course, Steve Sipple of Early Break, and of course of online radio, Husker Online, with Sean Callahan and the whole game. But we've got more about the spring game and other things. Well, I also want to hit a little basketball, if that's cool.
Oh yeah,
we'll talk a little basketball with Stephen M. Sipple, Mike Melby there, Tom Stevens here. It's Husker Rewind.
Yeah, for great views, go to Kansas. For unforgettable views of action-packed racing, go to Kansas Speedway. with a premier facility that gives fans what they want, how they want to see it. And with a Saturday doubleheader, a Sunday Cup Series race, and great deals on kids' tickets, the views will get better all weekend long. NASCAR weekend at Kansas Speedway, May 6th and 7th. Get your tickets today at kansasspeedway.com.
Seems like just the other day, I was building my first house. I've seen many changes to our building market in Lincoln. It's been a fun road.
Bob Banish is the founder and president of Aspen Builders, online at aspenbuildersinc.com.
You know, we hear this a lot where I don't want to live in a cookie cutter home. Well, let's come up with some answers on what we're going to build, where we're going to build it, and what it's going to cost. One thing that we started doing early on was we started building neighborhoods. I'm a firm believer in character in your street and in your neighborhood. I like choice. I like variation. I like maybe something a little bit different in a neighborhood that you don't see in every neighborhood. I think to have choices, its uniqueness, and I think that's what gives a neighborhood character. And I think that's what we've done over the years.
Make your dream home a reality and call Aspen Builders at 423-6811. Online at aspenbuildersinc.com. Your home's waiting at Aspen Builders.
Several irrigation contractors in Lincoln go out of business every year, leaving sprinkler system orphans. Begging service. The folks at Judson Irrigation shed a tear for these little fellas. They've been coddling these orphans for more than 40 years. From redesign, repairing, placing, and restoring, remember the Judson Irrigation Orphanage.
Call the Judson Irrigation Orphanage 402-420-6277 or judsonirrigation.com.
Are you planting this spring? Make safety your priority. LES requires any landscaping or trees to be planted a safe distance from electrical lines and equipment to give crews safe access. Visit les.com/trees to learn more.
Hi everyone, Kendall Warnock, Automotive in downtown Lincoln. Spring is here. Summer is fast approaching. With weddings, vacations, and weekend getaways on your mind, do not let car issues prevent you from getting where you need to be. Car problems shouldn't be something that you put up with. Let us get you back on the road in comfort and safety. We diagnose all makes and models from Porsches to Hondas, Toyotas, and Chevrolets. We fix a variety of issues with all of them with our talented techs and our experienced staff. A1 Automotive at 11th and L, downtown Lincoln, always honest answers.
Spring is here, and Acres has special financing on all John Deere lawn tractors and zero-turn mowers. Get your yard looking great and use John Deere's wide selection of attachments to landscape your property to perfection. And for a limited time, with a purchase of a new John Deere mower, get up to $200 to apply to the steel power tool of your choice. From trimmers to chainsaws, gas or electric, Acres is your home for steel products and service. Acres, solutions for every field.
Experience cool blue waters right in your backyard. All in-stock above-ground swimming pools at Bonsall Pool and Spa are now 50% off. This offer is good through the end of May or until supplies run out. Our stock will go fast, so hurry in and claim your new pool now. And don't forget to stock up for the season with our spring chemical sale for any new or existing pool. For more at bonsallpool.com or visit us at 33rd and Way 2. Bonsall Pool and Spa, every day made better. It's April, and that means the school year's almost over and summer road trips are on the horizon. Stop telling yourself you'll upgrade your car someday and do it now. Mullen Motors Lot is full of great vehicles to take home so you don't have to worry about your current car barely surviving another road trip. Come check out their lot just north of 48th and Layton and find your next ride, as summer road trips are just around the corner. Mullen Motors.
No taglines, just quality vehicles. Mullen Motors.
We're in the Sunday back to the Sunday Rewind with Tom and Mike on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Welcome back. Sunday Rewind, Husker Rewind with Mike Melby and Tom Stevens. Stephen them Sipple sitting in at least until 6 o'clock. We appreciate you dropping by, Sip. I do want to hit on some basketball. Is there anything?
What is it, man? What is it?
Wait, I want to quiz him real quick.
Go ahead.
Do you know who sings this?
I mean, it's Don Henley, but it's the original. Who's singing this?
Yeah, this is not the original.
It's not Don Henley.
God. Who is it?
Hold on. Do it. I don't know.
Named after a gaming system, the Ataris.
Is that right? Is that right?
It's the Ataris.
I mean, they do a good Don
Really
Henley. They
good.
sound like
That's
Don Henley.
really good.
It sounds like a young version of Don
Yeah.
Henley. I saw the Eagles when they played PBA. And Don Henley, you could tell he was just in a bad mood. He was just in a bad mood.
Well, you're old too.
But
and
we
you
know
get in a
this
bad
about
mood.
like Husker fans. They're excited to see everyone. And PBA has that element as well. Like they were so excited to see the Eagles and they were cheering so loudly after every song that you could see Henley go from, man, I don't want to be here to I'm having a fun time. Like they willed him in
Really?
to having a great time.
Boy, that's some.
And
I love, that's good analysis.
Yeah,
right there.
and
That really is.
Glenn Fry, I'm glad I saw it because that was like 6 months before Glenn Fry passed on.
Oh God.
And now his son's in the band. I don't know what he does in the band. I don't think he sings, but his son's in the band. And so I got to see the Eagles before Glenn Fry moves
God,
on.
that's interesting. So he came out surly.
He looked like he was
Don
just in a
Henley.
bad mood.
Yeah.
He was just in a really bad mood. And the crowd literally willed him into having a good time.
Oh, that's interesting.
Is there anything from the spring game that that we didn't hit that you thought was interesting? Nothing.
Hold on. Oh, kind of. I mean, I was interested just in the starting lineups. I mean, I like Gabe Irvin getting the start at running back.
Are you at all concerned about wide receiver? Because it feels like Billy Kemp, Marcus Washington, and then who else?
Xavier Betts.
And Josh Fleeks.
And Fleeks. I think they're okay there.
Okay.
It's not great though. Hey, I'm going to tell you, it's not. They have some guys. I would say my impression of it is not great. They don't have.
Fleeks was a guy that didn't play his last year
Right.
at Baylor much.
Well, he wasn't a starter yesterday. He was on
Right.
the second team.
Kemp looks good. Billy Kemp looks really good.
Kemp looks
Marcus
good.
Washington looks good.
Yeah, they don't have the explosive guy. You know, they don't have the explosive
They
downfield.
don't have Trey.
And they don't have Samori Toure.
Yeah.
And they will have in the fall Malachi Coltman.
That could
Who
help.
could, now, granted, true freshman, whatever,
it
but
could
that
help.
speed is going to help.
Well, and Xavier Betts could be that guy too. Who wasn't yesterday. But they're fine there. I like Kemp. He's interesting to me because he can do so many different things. But it's not Trey Palmer. He doesn't have that explosive speed that takes the top off.
It's a tough start. I mean, Minnesota is such a physical team.
It's a real tough start.
And maybe, Tony White will have a slight advantage because they don't know what they're seeing in a 3-3-5 and Nebraska can throw in a few wrinkles, but that scares me. A Thursday night game with Minnesota starting on the road. Man.
Yeah, it helps. There's no running back there by what was that running back?
Mo
Yeah,
Ibrahim.
No Ibrahim. They lost quite a bit.
I'm
they
hoping
lost a lot
do.
up front.
And yeah, they're young on the offensive line, so maybe there's an advantage there for Nebraska football. Move on to basketball because I thought it was a big week last week, or has it been 2 weeks now that Bryce Williams and Rick Mass committed to Nebraska basketball?
About 10 days ago.
About 10 days ago or so. And I thought, wow, this is good. And then the momentum has just stalled. Today we found out Latrell Wrightsell Jr. has picked Alabama. And there was maybe some thinking out there that Salas and Wrightsell could be a package deal. Yep. Salas was in town. You saw the pictures at the spring game with Trey McGowan's. How do you think things are going for Fred right now?
Well, like I loved that Bryce Williams pickup. I loved it.
Yeah.
I watched a lot of him. Now, when you pair him with Casey, who I think will be back, Jamarcus.
It sounds like Casey will be back.
Yeah, Jamarcus Lawrence or Wilcher. You got, serious shooters. Really serious.
And CJ can shoot.
Yes, he can. He can. He's just, I don't know.
Mental.
Guys
I
like,
think it's
it must
mental.
be
It
because
must be mental.
because his shooting stroke is beautiful.
Yeah.
It really looks good coming out of his hand usually. And then, the Bradley center I liked. Yeah, I guess it stalled a little bit. It's just that I just like to hear what Fred's explanation is if they don't get a point guard. Now, and then as far as Hunter Salas goes, I try to talk myself into Hunter.
But he's not a true point guard.
He's really not. No. I tried to
He's
say
an elite defender
Yeah.
who can score.
He's not a point guard.
He's not a point guard.
No, you can't. And you can't, if you find yourself trying to talk yourself into it, it's trouble. Now, a coach told me a real smart thing last week. If you're not born a point guard, you're not going to be a point guard.
Yeah.
It's just you have inherent traits that make you a point guard. And I don't think Hunter has it. I love Hunter as a player. I love him. but there's some limitations there. He shot 25% from 3-point territory.
Yeah.
Okay. He shot 25%. I mean,
Yeah, I really wanted Javion McCallum. And
Yes.
he chose Oklahoma.
Right.
He's a guy that could really score. He seems like a true point guard. And I think Fred made him a priority, according to Robin. Robin,
he's a
Husker,
priority. Yeah.
Yeah, he was a priority, and they just didn't get it.
Thank you.
I want to ask you, Keontae Johnson last year, granted the whole heart issue and all that type of stuff,
Yeah,
whether he got
yeah.
cleared, but there was also some speculation about whether or not there was enough NIL type stuff. Where's Nebraska basketball on the NIL front, from what you understand?
Well, it's all 1890. It's so that's, that's who handles it. I think if there's a player that Fred deems they need, the money's not going to be an issue.
Okay. I was just curious.
It was a health issue with Johnson last year.
Yeah, that it was, but I'd also heard some rumblings about that. And you're
Right.
like, okay,
I've heard
Wrightsell
some
and
things
McCollum,
Yeah.
Going elsewhere. Did we
yeah.
not bid high enough?
Oh, I don't think it's that.
Okay.
I mean, Nebraska's in a good spot.
Blake Lawrence has said that, I think he was quoted last week saying that Nebraska is not always among the biggest players. Like you've probably seen the NIL rundown, Tennessee spending $13 million.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
the numbers
that's on football.
And that doesn't seem like what Nebraska wants to do.
Well, there you go. I think Nebraska, if they want to do it, if they want to bid high, I think they can. I just don't think they want to all the time. But it's hard. The money's Nebraska can come up with the money. I mean, that in the money, there's a big pot over there right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd say it's. I don't mind
Hills.
saying it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's
The Freeman
$5 million.
family.
It's probably they got $5 million available. You can get guys the necessary money. And yeah, it's the Pete's. That's who we're talking about.
Yeah.
They're running that operation. They're billionaires. So
Yeah.
if the money's there.
Anything else, Mike? I don't want to let you hang around all night long. You got a
Okay.
show. You got to go to bed.
Yeah, I just got up and now I got to go back to bed.
No, you're willing to.
No, I'll check out. You guys got a show to do.
John Gaskins is coming in next hour to
Tell some Frank stories.
Tell some Frank stories. Do you have a favorite Frank story before you leave?
Yeah, I mean, the Gusset story was always
What's the
it
Gusset
largely
story?
defined Frank. Oh, I went through a whole Friday with him when they changed uniforms, and I think it was 2002, right? They changed to the Gussets, right? It was a big change, and it was all day long. Frank was really careful with the program, which I always respected. Like he wanted everything to be presented professionally. I was trying all day long on a Friday to get this story ramrodded in, and finally I said, Frank, come on. All we're going to do is write a story. We'll put it at the bottom corner of the sports section. So I won't present it as a big deal. Can I just get a quote? I know you're changing. I know they're going to look like the Bronco. The pants going to look like the Broncos. He recognized it was a pretty big deal. I said, well, just stick it at the corner of the sports. And then I got up the next morning, it was stripped across 1A. And of course he called, and he was first upset, but there's always other things he's got to deal with than that. But I always remember that story because it illustrates how careful Frank was.
Right.
He recognized that he had a huge job. He recognized that Nebraska is a program that's revered nationally, like the Yankees.
Didn't you say that one time you had called about a recruit, or he had called you about a recruit or something? And
no, here's what happened.
They yelled at you. They set
me up on a thing one time. It was one of his assistants gave me. It was LaKeven Smith. It was back before the recruiting websites were big. So the Journal-Star had the scoop on this high profile defensive lineman. And one of his assistants called me on Friday night. It was a Friday. And he said, I got a story for you. And so I went with it, got the information. We had the scoop. It was great. But then the next morning, Mary Lynn called. Mary Lynn was the secretary. And whenever Mary Lynn called you, it wasn't good news. They weren't calling with good news. Yeah. Frank needs to talk to you. And I was like, well, I wonder what this is. And Frank said, I need to know where you got that story. I need to know the assistant who told you that. And I said, Frank, there's no way on earth I'm telling you this. He goes, well, then whenever he was mad, he said, well, all the time. He'd start sentences with, well, and he said, well, you won't be covering the program anymore. I'll make sure of that. And I was a little worried. I was young in my career.
Sure.
I just bought a house. And that I said, well, that's just the way it's going to have to be then, Frank, because I'm not telling you. He goes, well, then don't be here on Monday. I don't want to see you on Monday. You're done here. I was like, all right, well, that's the way it's going to have to be then. And then there was laughter. And it was Dave Gillespie in the background. And Frank, they're laughing. And Frank said, you passed.
That's fantastic.
And that was it.
Do you think they were truly testing you?
No, just no doubt in my mind.
That's
back
funny.
then it was different because there was only 3 or 4 guys who covered it regularly, and there had to be a certain level of trust.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
That's a great story.
I passed, thank God.
Well, listen, as we always do on Early Break tomorrow.
Yeah, I hope you do. And just keep up the good work on this show.
Thank you.
I mean, is it great? You guys got a fabulous.
I hope
Sunday
you
show.
say that when we keep asking you back.
Well, I wish you would. I wish you would.
Stephen M. Sipple of Husker Online on 3 Network, and of course of Early Break. He's Mike Melby. Tom Stevens back with more after this.
This is Lincoln's home for sports talk on the FM dial. Also online at theticketfm.com. On the internet. KNTK FM Firth. 93.7 The Ticket. Happy Hour with Nick Sainert and Enrique Alvarez Clary.
We were trying to convince Austin, who will be having a child in October, to name his child Herbie. Why do we want to name it Herbie? Because we want to have a real-life Herbie mascot, and it'll stay with the family. Austin's just the patriarch. This is the first Herbie. And today, Herbert is a family name. It's a family name. Therefore, it's meant to be. Austin's going to be the patriarch for Herbie.
Weekdays from 1 to 2 on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Constructors is now hiring for all positions, with laborers starting at $2 and up based on experience. Constructors has immediate job openings for laborers, mechanics, bridge builders, operators, and drivers. Start your new career today. Constructors offers great pay, health, and vision insurance, paid time off, paid holidays, and so much more. Join the crew today and be a part of Nebraska's oldest paving company dating back to 1908. For a complete list of openings and to apply online, visit constructorslincoln.com. Experience cool blue waters right in your backyard. All in stock of swimming pools at Bonsall Pool and Spa are now 50% off. This offer is good through the end of May or until supplies run out. Our stock will go fast, so hurry in and claim your new pool now. And don't forget to stock up for the season with our spring chemical sale for any new or existing pool. Learn more at bonzalpool.com or visit us at 33rd and Highway 2. Bonsall Pool and Spa, every day made better. Too many believe that chronic pain, allergies, or illness are permanent and something you're stuck with. Novotny Nutrition and Wellness has been proving that narrative wrong for 29 years and changed the better in the process. Their team is trained in the newest, most advanced pain-relieving techniques and ways to deal with toxins, allergies, pollution, and emotion that make you ill. Call today for a free consultation at 531-254-5695 or go to novotnynutritionandwellness.com. Novotny Nutrition and Wellness, located at 7th and Superior.
Gaina Trucking is hiring CDL Class A and B drivers. Gaina Trucking guarantees a 40-hour work week year-round, and their strong team culture makes it not a job, but a career. Gaina Trucking offers health, vision, and dental insurance, 401k with company match, an employee assistance program, and other bonus programs. Build a better career today with great team culture at Gaina Trucking. Learn more and apply today at GainaTrucking.com.
Elway Power Sports of Lincoln is celebrating their grand opening on Friday and Saturday, April 28th and 29th. Stop by for free food, door prizes with chances to win an autographed John Elway jersey and more. Check out their brand new Indian motorcycle boutique with the demo truck on site for demo rides all day Saturday. Over 600 machines in stock for major brands like Can-Am, Kawasaki, Yamaha, Polaris, Sea-Doo, and more. New owners and new attitude. Check out Elway Power Sports of Lincoln on North 27th Street for their grand opening on April 28th and 29th.
There's nothing quite like the Mercado by Certified Piedmontese beef. The Mercado offers unique ingredients you can't find anywhere else, open every day from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. The full-service butcher shop and retail store is wonderful for meat lovers with their exclusive certified Piedmontese beef and assorted sausages, plus other quality meats, including pork, chicken, and a wide range of the freshest seafood. Plus, every Friday from 11 to 2, the Mercado serves up the best lunch in town on their Friday Feast menu. Stop in at the Mercado today at 84th and Havelock or visit their website and cpmercado.com to see current deals. Tipsy Tina's Taco Cantina is the talk of the Haymarket, and for good reason. Grab a breakfast taco on a game day morning or stop by for lunch or dinner for their huge variety of street taco options. They have everything from carne asada or chorizo tacos to shrimp or fish tacos, buffalo chicken, and more. Plus, they have more than 140 different tequilas and tons of other beer or mixed drink options. There's truly something for everyone. Make plans to stop by for any meal of the day at Tipsy Tina's Taco Cantina, 8th and Q in the Haymarket.
Hi, everyone. Kendall Warnock, A1 Automotive in downtown Lincoln. Spring is here. Summer is fast approaching. With weddings, vacations, and weekend getaways on your mind, do not let car issues prevent you from getting where you need to be. Car problems shouldn't be something that you put up with. Let us get you back on the road in comfort and safety. We diagnose all makes and models from Porsches to Hondas, Toyotas, and Chevrolets. We fix a variety of issues with all of them with our talented techs and our experienced staff. A1 Automotive at 11th and L, downtown Lincoln, always honest answers.
This is Sunday Rewind on 937 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. Now, here are your hosts, Tom Stevens and Mike Melby.
Welcome back to Husker Rewind here on 93.7 The Ticket, theticketfm.com. I'm Mike Melby. That is Tom Stevens. Huge thank you out to On Three's Stephen M. Sipple for joining us in studio for the last two segments. Off Sutter Heyman text line. We didn't ask Steve beforehand, and we should have. I didn't catch it until we got into break and he walked out of the studio. But we needed to know, Sip, if you're listening, you're still in the hallway. Nyla needs to know if you picked Splenda up.
Splenda?
Yeah, Splenda. So, and then Gravy Gus says his spring game take, defense is decent, offense not so much. Hoping for Casey to come back. I think we're going 5-7.
Well, you mentioned something to Sip, and I hadn't really thought about it. I mean, and hopefully that's still the case in a couple of weeks and nobody transfers, but you have a chance to actually have a quarterback battle in the fall.
Oh, yeah. I'm so
between Jeff
excited
Sims.
about this.
And I would not count Casey out.
Oh, no.
Casey is one of those guys. I really believe it when you hear first one in, last one out.
Yeah.
He may not win the gig, but he's going to maybe die trying. I just think it's going to be a great battle. And I loved what Sims did. My gosh. 9 of 13, only 120. He had the quarterback draw for a touchdown. The rest of the quarterbacks were awful. They were combined 17 of 41 for 120 yards, something like that, with a couple of picks. Sims didn't do anything terrible that I saw. He had a drop, but he bought time in the pocket. I thought that
twice.
He made a couple of really nice throws. His deep ball, I think, needs some improvement, but he throws a nice slant.
Yeah.
But I also see a lot of those same things in Casey Thompson. Yeah. I'm just saying, don't overlook Casey Thompson. That's going to be a battle.
It is. From Bryce off the Sutter Heyman text line. Minnesota is notoriously terrible to start the season, so I think we're fine.
Oh, good. Hopefully they remember to be notoriously terrible when we play them on a Thursday night to open the season.
Awesome.
PJ Fleck's a good coach, and he scares me.
Yeah.
I just think he's a really good coach.
Yeah. And
I think he also hates Nebraska. I know he didn't like Frost very much.
No, and I also wonder how much plastic surgery he had this offseason.
There was something going on there.
I think there was. I don't know what that has to do with football, but I'm still kind of wondering.
It's like the plastic. I never hear a lot of talk about it. I mean, we talked about it on the air. Another thing I never heard about, when athletes change their look, like Tom Brady, you look at early era pictures of Tom Brady and then later era, he's got a full head of hair versus he's balding early on in his career. I mean, you could see when he took off his helmet, like he looks like me, he's balding. And now he's got a full head of hair, like he's a supermodel, which makes sense because he thinks he's a supermodel and he was married to a supermodel.
Well, don't say Rogaine doesn't work.
So I think
for men.
When you say that Fleck had plastic surgery, it's not a conversation that I think a lot of radio people have, but they probably do privately.
They might.
Because he looks like he's had plastic surgery.
You and I are strange and talk about weird things. Here, one weird thing that's going to get talked about starting next Sunday night at 7 o'clock right here on this radio station is going to be racing. Now, I've got a bit of a background in racing.
Yes, you do.
I spent 10 years announcing out at Eagle Raceway, and I helped out a good buddy of mine, Tyke Jensen, on his sprint car back in 2018. I helped Regan Kitchen out for a few years. Been around the sport for a long, long time. And our good friend and owner of the radio station, Rebecca Pearson, and I had a conversation a while ago and said we had to do a racing show. And so we are going to, starting next Sunday night at 7 o'clock, it's going to be called The Finish Line.
Wow.
And the goal for this show is I want to spotlight as many forms of racing. You and I have got something that we do. We cover as much stuff as we can. We want to make it Husker-centric, but if there's breaking news, if there's anything going on in the sporting world, we're going to try to make sure we get you that information. I love that concept. I love that thought process. So we're going to cover on the finish line. We're going to cover NASCAR. We're going to cover the Xfinity Series, the trucks and Cup. We're going to cover the World of Outlaws, both late models and sprint cars. We're going to cover the All-Star Circuit of Champions. That's Tony Stewart's sprint car series. We're going to cover USAC. We're going to cover the midgets. We're going to cover the Silver Crowns. We're going to cover the sprint cars.
Sounds like you've thought about the show a little bit.
I've been thinking about this show a lot and for a long time. And then we're going to cover local racing. We're going to talk dirt tracks around the area, Beatrice and possibly McCool Junction, obviously Eagle Raceway. And we're going to get some of the local guys on. We're going to have some national guys on. We're going to have various segments where we're talking to drivers. We're going to talk to crew chiefs. We're going to talk to car owners. We're going to talk to promoters. We're going to talk anything and everything racing. We may start talking about what type of equipment the racers use and where they get it from when they need a mule, when they need an ATV, when they need something to get them, to and from the track, whatever. We don't care. We're going to talk about anything and everything racing, make it racing centric. And we're going to start with an hour and just kind of like you and I did. If we decide we need to go 2, we're going to go 2. We'll figure out a time slot to put it.
And your partner, at least originally, we'll see how much she participates as time goes on. Rebecca Pearson.
Rebecca Pearson, for those that don't know, has a vast knowledge of racing and a ton of experience working with NASCAR. I'll let her explain all that next week, but it is a young lady that knows a ton about racing. So
and you're close friends and helped him get into the business, Rick Swigert, who's now on the NASCAR circuit as an announcer.
Yeah,
you should have him on the show.
I would like to. Do you know how I helped him? I helped him tremendously. I was his partner, and they went, well, that guy is not very good, but this one is awesome. We need him.
Well, there would be no Swigert without a Melby.
I think he would have got there.
Probably
just fine
still
on his
would be,
own,
actually.
But,
but I thought you guys did a great job. I remember because I would sit in and try to do track announcing, and you would kind of encourage me to come by, but I was terrible at it. I couldn't see the numbers, and you would correct me all the time, and I just wasn't very good at it. It takes a real knack to be a track announcer, and you were a live track announcer as they're going around the track back in the day.
Well, yeah, and the most fun actually when we were doing it was actually when I would have the wireless mic and I'm in the crowd calling the race while it's going on, walking through the crowd.
Yeah,
and there were nights that, courtesy of his involvement with the University of Nebraska and commitments that he had there were nights Rick couldn't come out, and I was the one that always played the music as well. So I would simply set things up with the music to play at certain times and schedule it. And I had a young man that would come up and help me out with that. And I'd just go down in the crowd and mingle with everybody and call the races from down there. It was a lot of fun.
You guys were great together. I think a lot of probably NASCAR guys probably call it off a screen, right? They watch the screen as they get farther away. They probably call it. You had to call it from the track just as they're circling. And I just found it really hard to see, but you guys were outstanding at doing it. Husker basketball, Hunter Salas was in town, and we talked a little bit with Sip about what a big get he would be. And we questioned whether or not he's a true point guard. How big of a get do you think he would be for Fred Hoiberg?
For where they sit right now from a numbers standpoint, I would like to see him here. I think he's pretty important. If he decides he's going to go elsewhere, is at the end of the season for Nebraska basketball next year? No. Are there still other guys out there that they can get? Yeah, I think there are. Is there a point guard? I don't know who they're in on. All of my sources, which I have none, I just read a lot. But everybody that
all
has
of my
sources,
wait a minute, I have none.
Yeah, but all the people that I read and that I follow on social media, et cetera, that do fantastic jobs, like Robin Washington.
Yeah, Washington's great. BC's great.
BC is amazing.
Yeah.
I haven't heard another point guard, but at the end of the day, just if they do not add anybody else, and I think they will, I think they'll add probably 2 more people.
Yeah.
Even if they didn't, I still think they have a chance to be a pretty salty team next year.
Well, they would still have a point guard in Ramel Lloyd, I think.
Yeah.
I think he's from what you've heard, very capable of playing the point guard position. He redshirted last year. So the only people that saw him is the people that went to practice on a daily basis. But I heard good reports about him. So I think you would still have him. Maybe you could experiment with your idea and my idea at times. Keisei Tamanaga as a point guard. You could experiment with that. I wonder about LaMarcus Lawrence, whether or not he could be a point guard. You've heard Bryce Williams can do it occasionally.
Yeah, and he's 6'7".
He's 6'7", transfer from Charlotte, and I think he can do it. I'm looking at the roster. C.J. Wilcher, Sam Hoiberg, not really a point guard.
You know what, though? If you had to take a guy and say we're going to make him our point guard, I think Sam Hoiberg would be the guy because of his basketball knowledge.
He as I've said about Sam Hoiberg,
game IQ, man.
You probably never want him starting a game, but you probably want him at the end of the game because he makes free throws and he always makes the right decision.
Well, but and that's the whole thing. I'll argue that why would you not want him starting a game if he always makes the right decision? I get it. There's other guys out there, that type of stuff. The other one that is kind of I don't want to call him the linchpin or the key or the whatever, but Rick Mast is a guy that doesn't have the passing ability of Derek Walker. He's got the size Walker did. He's got great finishing ability.
He's really crafty.
But the thing that he has that Derek Walker did not is a three-point shot.
He's a way better three-point
shooter. He shot.
Although we've seen the video, now Derek apparently shoots threes.
Yeah. So, but Mast shoots 35% from three. And the other key thing with Mast is he's a 74% free throw shooter. Now Walker at the end of the season got better. But
thanks to, by the way, our own Eric Strickland, he's
yeah.
like, you're not releasing it at the top.
Well,
of
yeah,
your...
he had a hitch in his
giddy up
form. Yeah.
And for a while he was really shooting it well, and then it kind of came back. It crept back in to his free throw shooting. We might as well do it because it's a fun exercise to do every time we talk about Nebraska basketball and think about next year in the lineup. You're starting five. I've got Bryce Williams and Rick Mast starting immediately, along with Jawan Gary.
Absolutely.
Jawan Gary, assuming he comes back healthy. I would like the fourth to be Hunter Salas. We'll see if it is. And then you've got options after that. Do you go big with Wilhelm Breidenbach? Probably not. You could have Jamarcus Lawrence in there. You're not going to have Wrightsell because he committed to Alabama today. I just don't know. I mean, after Bryce Williams, Rick Mast, and Jawan Gary, I'm a little bit stumped.
Keisei Tamanaga is to me
a guy
that
Tamanaga, of course, he's not officially back, but you're right.
Well, but Hunter Salas is not officially here, and he may not. But yeah, so I mean, if we're with the guys that are here, so we eliminate
that
Salas.
that would be the fourth.
Yeah, I think Jamarcus Lawrence is your fifth. However, you've got Ramel Lloyd and you've got Eli Rice. I think Eli Rice is going to come in and be a guy that is going to be able to give them what Jamarcus Lawrence did near the end of the season. I think he's a guy that has that ability.
I wouldn't mind that lineup. I'd like a little more size.
I would too. I'd love to get the 7-footer out of LSU. I know that they've had
or Brady Dunlap.
Brady Dunlap.
Brady Dunlap already visited, had a very good visit, but he's visiting North Carolina, which is not good usually for places like Nebraska. But we'll see because Fred's been recruiting him a long time. He committed to Notre Dame, and then Mike Bray moved on.
Yeah, Fred was one of the first guys to offer him a scholarship, if I remember right.
Yeah. And he's 6'7" and can really shoot it. So we'll see how it works out. They were so on fire just 10 days ago or whenever it was that Rick Mast and Bryce Williams committed. I was thinking they could be really picky at that point to fill out the rest of their lineup. And they have 3 scholarships left to give. Now I'm not sure how picky they can be because spots start to fill up. But keep this in mind, guys will also leave. I mean, there's more guys that are going to jump in the portal, including maybe even Nebraska.
Yeah, there might be 1 or 2 from Nebraska. I would have thought it would have happened already.
You would think so, but some guys are waiting around for the NBA. Can I play in the G League? Can I play, get a run at this draft? They're looking at that type of thing. Do I go overseas? Do I stay on my current roster?
Some guys are Andrew White,
the third.
Yes.
I liked
it until July.
He lived in my building at one time.
Oh, really? Down on
when I lived in the Haymarket. Yeah, Charleston.
Yeah.
9th and Charleston, the school. And he was a really nice kid. Went over to his apartment one time and had a beverage of the adult variety because I told him I was a big fan. He said, "Come on in, have a beverage." And we did. I really liked him. And then I was really mad at him when he left and went to Syracuse.
Exactly.
But he was a good kid. Nebraska could use an Andrew White III, another shooter
they
like
could.
that. I would, if you said Andrew White III is available in the portal, I'd say go get him.
How about Joe McCray?
Yeah, he kind of ate himself out of the lineup.
I don't care.
Remember that summer, Joe McCray? He had that great freshman year under Barry Collier, and then he went home that summer, and he came back literally 50 pounds heavier.
Yeah.
Mom's cooking.
Yeah, I think it probably was. So
sometimes mom's cooking can be irresistible.
Do we want to jump to break, or do we want to touch real quick on Nebraska baseball?
Yeah, I hate to end a segment that way.
Yeah, true.
But we can if you want to. I mean,
okay, here,
let's get it over. It's like pull the Band-Aid.
Okay.
Pull the Band-Aid, get it over with. Nebraska baseball had a terrible weekend.
Yeah, they did. They get swept at Iowa. None of the games were close. 11-6, 8-zip, 6-1. Starting pitching was, to say, they were just atrocious. ERA was like 16.5 for the three starters this weekend.
Runners in scoring position. They stranded runner after runner.
Yeah.
Not that they had a ton of them at times.
But at the same time, you and I both have the same thoughts on this coaching staff. They're amazing.
I love them.
We know that they've got things that they're going to do, ways to address it. They're going to get it fixed. They're going to figure it out. Their road to the regionals just got a lot more difficult, though. It's no longer than it was before. It's the same road. You got 17 games left. The problem is that road, the incline just got a lot steeper.
You got to get red hot.
And there's a couple of potholes in it now.
You probably, at this point, as you mentioned, you got to win the Big Ten tournament.
You may have to.
You might have to win. And the thing that's most discouraging to me is they're still 21, 14-1, whatever it is. But now they're 7-5 in the league.
Yep.
But it felt like they were always going to get a great outing from Emmett Olson on Friday night. And then they were going to get a really good outing from Jace Kaminska on Saturday. Jace didn't pitch last weekend against Northwestern. They said he had a tired arm. And apparently there was a little bit of that with Emmett Olson and has been recently as well. So you worry about guys that get, and this happens to pitchers sometimes, the arm just isn't working the way it was at the start of the season. And if that's the case, hopefully these guys bounce back.
Yeah.
But that's the most discouraging thing for me. I thought they had a Friday, Saturday guy, and then they would just figure out the Sunday guy. And I always thought they would hit. And they're hitting, but they're not hitting with runners in scoring position. Yeah. And they're striking out a lot.
A lot. They scored 7 runs in 3 games this weekend. And this is one of the best offenses in the country.
Yeah, it is. I don't think they're getting enough 2-out hits. I don't think they're getting enough. There's too many swing and misses in general. Their defense is still pretty good, but they're going through a tough time right now.
Yeah.
We're going through a good time because we had the man, Stephen M. Sipple, on early break. Of course, tomorrow morning he has to go back to bed, so rest up for that show after he just took a nap prior to that. But, of course, we had
Don't forget the Splenda.
Don't bring up the Splenda. But we're not done with guests. We have John Gaskins, who used to be on my show, Gaskins and Stevens. He's in Sioux Falls.
Yep.
I know he does promotional work for the Sioux Falls Canaries. He does sports anchor work and news anchor work in Sioux Falls. And he's kind of a Husker historian. Yep. He knows a lot about Husker football. He was on this show and this station for a long time. We'll talk to him. John Gaskins. He's Mike Melby. I'm Tom Stevens. More after this.
Experience the Landmark difference with the next level of dealer support. Landmark, your local John Deere dealer, continually works to have parts on hand the first time you walk in the door. Our internal route system means we can get the parts to you typically same or next day to keep you up and running. At Landmark, we understand time is money. Get more uptime with our after-hours parts and service support on the phone or in the field. Our sales, precision ag, parts, and service teams are ready to serve you this planting season. Stop by your local Landmark today to experience the Landmark difference.
This is Jay Foreman. When I played football for Nebraska and in the NFL, I wore protective gear to safeguard my health. Today, I'm not only protecting my health, but everyone in our community by staying up to date with the bivalent COVID vaccine. Update your protection with the bivalent COVID vaccine while it's still free. Find out more at healthylincoln.org. That's healthylincoln.org.
There's a lot of realtors in Lincoln, but don't get overwhelmed by all the names.
Ben Bleicher with Professional Realtor Group at Berkshire Hathaway Ambassador Real Estate is your go-to option when buying or selling residential and commercial property. Ben's team offers unbeatable customer service and promises to make the buying and selling process as stress-free as possible. Call Ben today at 402-419-6309 for all your real estate needs. Ben Bleicher with Professional Realty Group at Berkshire Hathaway Ambassador Real Estate. No pressure, just professionalism.
Too many people believe that chronic pain, allergies, or illness are permanent and something you're stuck with. Novotny Nutrition and Wellness has been proving that narrative wrong for 29 years and changing lives for the better in the process. Their team is trained in the newest, most advanced pain-relieving techniques and ways to deal with toxins, allergies, pollution, and emotion that make you ill. Call today for a free consultation at 531-254-5695 or go to novotnynutritionandwellness.com. Novotny Nutrition and Wellness, located at 7th and Superior.
Repeat after me. I will not touch the fuse box.
I will probably not touch the fuse box.
Sip, do you remember what happened last time?
Yeah, I remember.
What happened?
Half of the city block lost power.
And?
My chicken condo went haywire.
That's right. The chickens ran wild. So what do we do instead?
Call Joe at Ambition Electric and let him handle everything. Look, saved on speed dial.
Ambition Electric, 402-217-3415 or online at ambitionelectric.com.
Working at Continental in Lincoln isn't a job, it's a career. And right now they've raised wages again and they're hiring for production operators at $24.11 per hour, which grows to $28.27 per hour within 3 years. Skilled trade positions now start at $32.76 per hour with opportunities to make more based on certifications. Continental also has salary jobs available and great benefits, plus medical and prescription costs at very low premiums. Dental, vision, and life insurance are offered at no premium cost to the associates with increased bonuses and vacation for new hires. To learn more or to apply, go to continental-jobs.com with keyword Lincoln. Come work at Continental today.
Several irrigation contractors in Lincoln go out of business every year, leaving sprinkler system orphans begging for service. The folks at Judson Irrigation shed a tear for these little fellas. They've been coddling these orphans for more than 40 years. From redesign, repairing, replacing, and restoring, remember the Judson Irrigation Orphanage.
Call the Judson Irrigation Orphanage 402-420-6277 or judsonirrigation.com.
Hi everyone, Kendall Warnock, A1 Automotive in downtown Lincoln. Spring is here. Summer is fast approaching. With weddings, vacations, and weekend getaways on your mind, do not let car issues prevent you from getting where you need to be. Car problems shouldn't be something that you put up with. Let us get you back on the road in comfort and safety. We diagnose all makes and models from Porsches to Hondas, Toyotas, and Chevrolets. We fix a variety of issues with all of them with our talented techs and our experienced staff. A1 Automotive at 11th and L, downtown Lincoln, always honest answers.
This is the Sunday Rewind on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Final half an hour. Husker Rewind, Mike Melby and Tom Stevens had a fun first hour with Stephen M. Sipple talking a lot about the spring game, his memories of Frank Solich as well. I'd like to continue on that theme. Really good Nebraska football historian was on this very station during the inception of the Ticket for what we were on for 10 years together, and then he moved away. John Gaskins moved to Sioux Falls. He's doing radio and TV there. He's a promotions guy, but still follows very closely Nebraska football. Hey, John, how are you?
Hey, Tom. It was 5 years you and I were on together, but it probably felt like 10 for you. So
I was on total 10. We were on together for 5. Yes.
5. Yeah. Yep. No, I'm great. How are you guys doing?
Really good. Really good. You contacted me today, and I thought this would be a great guy to have on to talk about Frank Solich, because I think you were at the university at that time as a student then, and you covered Nebraska football. I'm trying to think back, but you're obviously well-schooled in Husker history. What are some of your memories of Frank Solich?
Well, I was a student writer for the Daily Nebraskan college newspaper, and Frank Solich was the coach the whole time I was doing that. My freshman year was Osborne's last, and then I got to the DN, and by the year 2000, I was the main beat writer for the football team, got to be a columnist the next year, and so really got to see some of Frank's best hits, right? And I have a couple. First of all, you guys would know this better than I do. But from what I recall, the spring game was never that big of an affair. and maybe there was 15 or 20,000, and I think NET had it on statewide TV, but it wasn't like this colossal 60,000, 70,000, some years 90,000 go there. The first time I remember it being like, this is big, and the athletic department actually wanted to really pump this because, my gosh, we can make a lot of money doing this, was Frank Solich's first year. Like, there was 60,000 there, and the stadium was being renovated to see somebody else, to see somebody run out of that tunnel and lead the Huskers onto the field. But my fondest memory was in the year 2000, just before they went and played this game at Notre Dame. I don't know if you guys remember that Notre Dame game in 2000?
I went to it. I was at that game.
Yeah,
I really was at that
too.
game. Yeah,
I think there were a few Husker fans there. Might have been a little red in the crowd, but that week it was such a huge game, and so they wanted me to write a big feature on Frank Solich. And this guy, as you guys were mentioning last hour, and Sipple was just he didn't give a lot of himself, not because he was a jerk. He was just I think he was just uncomfortable and nervous being in the spotlight. He was kind of a boring guy. That was the impression that you got from listening to him talk. And we didn't give him personally a hard time, but us cynical college sports writers, we had a lot of snot on our nose. So we would actually keep track on our notepads during Frank Solich Tuesday press conferences, like 4 different terms he would constantly use just because he was so uncomfortable talking. He'd say the word tremendous a lot.
Yep.
He would say certainly, like a typical Frank Solich sense was, certainly we ran the ball tremendous on Saturday in terms of running the ball on that end of it. So we'd have like this little score sheet of certainly, tremendously on that end of it in terms of, and, have some fun tallying up who was going to win that race. So it was kind of a tough assignment to really capture the essence of Frank when nobody really could. And I talked to Tom Osborne. Jim Ross was Bob Devaney's best friend and an assistant for the Huskers the whole time Devaney was there, and coached Frank when Frank was a fullback. And Matt Davison, Josh Brown, they all gave me great stuff. Jim Rose, because Jim Rose is the Husker football historian, and got to know Frank pretty well. I think Frank was Jim Rose's driver's ed teacher or something at Southeast High.
He was.
So, a lot of good background. Blair Kirkhoff from the Kansas City Star, who kind of covered college football nationally. But I had the darndest time talking to Frank, and it's kind of tough to do feature stories when the main subject is unavailable. And I was from the Daily Nebraska. I wasn't from the World Herald or ESPN. So, like, the folks at the NU athletic department that handle interviews were just and I was new to the football beat as well. So they were just kind of telling me, Frank doesn't really have time for a one-on-one. And he thinks he's too boring for 15 minutes talking about himself. Ha, ha, ha. And I said, well, I really need to talk to him. And they said, well, they practice, you get to talk to him after practice. And you know how these practices are. It's even gaudier now, but like 20 years ago, there were still 20, 25 people at practice in this huddle. There wasn't even a podium and stuff. I'm not gonna squeeze the essence of Frank Solich after the last practice before the Notre Dame game. So, I mean, the story's due in about 5 hours, and I still haven't interviewed Frank. And I just finally kind of stuck my neck out and approached him as he was walking back to the locker room. And I introduced myself. He didn't know me at all. I was the third week on the beat. I'm a little college kid. And I just said, do you mind, is there any way I can talk to you for 5 minutes? Right now, I just have a few questions. It's a story that I'm doing on you. He gave me the same joke the athletic department was giving me to try to send me off. I'm too boring to talk about myself. And anyway, he also said, I just don't have time. I've got a speaking engagement in Omaha I've got to be at. I got to leave soon. And I was kind of like, really? You do? Are you serious? Are you lying? And I didn't say that. But then he looked up. He was looking down. He looked up at me, and he said, but you know what? I could probably talk to you on the way there. And so I was like, okay. And so I gave him my number. Didn't really believe that he would. He calls my room. This was pre-cell phones. Calls my room, and it was the most surreal moment because it was like, hey, John? Yeah. It was you could tell it was Frank Solich right away. Yeah, it's Frank Solich. I'm like, thank you for identifying yourself. And he was there was nothing terrifically memorable about the conversation other than that he went 40 minutes with me. He just started talking. He was just on the drive to Omaha, and you meet somebody and you have a nice conversation and time flies. And I didn't feel like I had enough because, again, it's tough to extract anything interesting out of Frank Solich. He was really nice and he was really giving of his time. I still didn't have any great quotes or insight because he was also pretty good at dodging that stuff. I'm sure Tom Osborne taught him pretty well at that. But I think he was just uncomfortable talking about himself. But I actually told him, as he's like, I'm here now. I've got to get out of the car. And I said, thank you for your time. But I just had a couple more questions. And I was just dumb enough and brash enough to ask him for more time than he'd already given me. And he said, sure, I'll call you back. And I still thought, sure, you will. And he did. Like 2 hours later, I'd actually fallen asleep because I was so exhausted by the angst and the pressure of putting this together, this Frank Solich story that maybe 10 people would read. And he called me back, woke me up, gave me another, 20 minutes or so. And most of the quotes in the story were from other people because he didn't give me very good quotes. But the end of the story was, I asked him, I said, I got to be honest with you. I'm just a college newspaper reporter. It's Notre Dame week. I know you've been talking to everybody, ESPN, Sports Illustrated, or whoever. Like, why are you giving me this time? And he just said, well, you've got a job to do. And part of my job is being accessible to reporters. Mm-hmm. And I said, wow. All right. And so, as you probably have a couple stories interviewing him as well, Tom, with your chances. I know there was that classic Black 41 flash reverse story with him. Yeah. It's easy to have a soft spot in your heart for Frank Solich because kind of what you saw, the nice but very shy guy at the podium, was really who he was. He was really a nice, genuine guy.
Hey, John, I got a question for you on Frank and him being back. Did you watch the press conference on Friday?
I did. Yeah, I did.
Okay. The way I took it, he started out very uncomfortable. And I think it was the question about the curse. And it felt like he exhaled. It felt like he all of a sudden was like, hey, I know you, that's Simple's right there. I know these guys.
Yes.
And he became back to kind of the old Frank Solich that we knew. And just comfortable. You knew he wasn't comfortable being in front of the crowd on Saturday. I thought he did a fine job in keeping the statements short and sweet. But what were your thoughts about the way he handled the whole weekend? Because, I mean, it could have gone a lot of different ways, but I think it went pretty dang well.
I agree with everything you just said. And Tom and I were calling for what happened Friday and Saturday, like as early as 10 years ago, when it was clearly not time. He was not ready. He was still coaching at Ohio. The wounds hadn't healed yet. But, I think you try to put yourself in his shoes, right? He devoted 30 years of his life and won 80% of his games as a head coach, had to wait till he was 58 or whatever he was, 53 for his turn. And then he gets jobbed like that. And I certainly don't mind talking about was that the right thing to do or not. I kind of agree with Tom. At the time I believed, and I kind of still believe it was, yes, after a 9-3 season, maybe it was time to see if somebody else could keep Nebraska at a national championship level because he didn't the last 2 years. Those were the standards back then. But you still imagine, like in his mind, like he's working his arse off, and that this happens. And of course, Sipple was right. This was a vendetta from Steve Peterson. Number one, that's why Frank Solich got fired, because him and Peterson hated each other. And Peterson didn't want to work with him. And he found 3 blowout losses in 2003 and a 7-7 season the year before it as good enough. But I'm going back there because so imagine like being screwed like Frank thought he was screwed, and not just him, but Pam, the whole family. Like, wow, and how bitter you would be. And his daughter, I guess, has lived in Lincoln the whole time to go back there all the time. And he apparently hadn't set foot in Memorial Stadium. He'd been back to Lincoln many times, had done some functions at Southeast and such, but it just didn't even care to set foot in the stadium. And maybe it's because no one invited him. But Tom and I would always say on our show, like, this man needs to know. That was Steve Peterson that fired him. And yeah, there were some fans that maybe didn't think he was fit to be the head coach anymore. But that didn't mean most of us, and I go back to the story I just told, don't have a soft spot for him. He needs to be in front of, I think, 90,000. I wish they would have done this for a game, 90,000. But, 66 was just fine and dandy. For him to feel showered with love, like no matter how you felt at that time, and a lot of people have changed their mind. They realize you don't know what you got till it's gone type of thing, the curse and et cetera, that everything's going to be washed away if you just put him out there in front of people. And there's no replacement for that. You can't do that virtually or online. It's pack a stadium and show him how much you love him. And I think he probably felt that from the media, because a lot of the media there on Friday was probably there when he was head coach. But also that function that they had, I saw some of the videos, his old players coming back to say hi to him. I think it was really neat. And even a guy that doesn't like having attention drawn to himself, I think by Saturday, after the press conference you mentioned, Mike, the fact that he kind of acknowledged the curse and made a joke about it, that was awesome. I think at that point by Saturday in the ceremony, he had already gotten the point. Okay, it's Sally Field, right, Tom? They like me. They really like me. It was Steve Peterson and Harvey Perlman fired him, not the Nebraska fans, And even if some of us did, by gosh, he deserved that day. And I'm just glad he got to see it while he was alive. He looks like the fittest 78-year-old you've ever seen, but he's 78. Yeah. You never know when stuff is going to happen, We could all have a heart attack tonight. So for him to be alive and functioning, for Pam to be alive and functioning to see that, it did everybody good.
We real quickly, we went through the Bo Pelini, part of the Bo Pelini era together, and then the start of the Mike Riley era on the airwaves here at the Ticket. So we talked about every game before and after. What's your general feeling as they transitioned to Matt Rule and the new era of Nebraska football compared to those?
I don't know if you can. It seems kind of weird, doesn't it? I mean, everything new, horrible stuff just keeps happening to Nebraska football, where it's tough to predict. I did myself a favor by watching 48 minutes, that thing that the athletic department put out. It was on YouTube. I was flipping through YouTube, going down a rabbit hole. Trev Alberts, Tom Osborne, and Matt Rule, roundtable discussion. And it's not anything that's going to blow anybody's hair back, but it was, Tom Osborne has a way of giving you glimpses into the little touches he did behind the scenes that made that such a juggernaut for 25 years. And you can see Matt Rule sitting there. Trev's got a big smile on his face the whole time because he lived it in early in the glory years of the 90s. And Matt Rule just kind of sit there with a very intent looking on his face, listening to it. And some of the things that Matt Rule kind of tried to talk about what he was all about. And I know you asked for me to be quick. Was like, you could be on board with it. But I'm at the point where there seems to be a little more substance with Matt Rule, especially the resume compared to Pelini, who was a first-time coach, compared to Riley, who was a 500 coach, and compared to who was the last guy? That guy who had a couple of years under his belt, and it was just square peg, round hole when it came to what he was able to do in Florida versus the situation he had here, that he had to actually work and adjust, and he didn't. So it feels like there's more substance behind Rule, but I'm at the point where I can't drink the Kool-Aid. Just show me. Just show me.
I think we've all gotten to that point. John, even if we're all on board with Rule.
John, one quick question on a personal note, because I've got to know if you know him. I've got a good buddy up there. His name's Jim Olander. Do you know Jim?
Jim Olander, yeah, baby. Yeah, he's the voice of the Sioux Falls Stampede and the president of the hockey team in the league of the Lincoln Stars. And of course, everybody knows and loves Jimmy up here.
Well, tell him you got to tell him I said hi.
I'll tell him he said hi. You bet. Yeah. He's still the guy. He's been doing it for like 20 years.
Oh, I know.
By the way, PJ Fleck did have plastic surgery.
Good.
It was kind of a big thing because we're in Sioux Falls. We got a lot of Gopher fans up here, so I still follow the sports media in Minnesota. And he apparently he said he had some bungee. Of course, PJ Fleck, who by the way is very vain, very full of himself. Tommy said is a good coach. He's an okay coach. He's 500 in the Big Ten, but boy, he loves to get on that stage and be P.T. Barnum. And he said, classic PJ Fleck, I had to have this little reconstructive surgery because of a bungee jumping accident.
Okay.
And I'm just thinking, okay, sure you did. I mean, that's a great thing for recruits to hear, right? But hey, at least PJ went with bald is beautiful. He didn't go the Rogaine route that Tom Brady did. He embraced it like I did several years ago, so he's got that going.
Well, you have a good-looking head. I've always said, like Michael Jordan had the perfect head, so he looked good actually bald. Charles Barkley, not so much. Charles Barkley, not as good of a head.
Correct.
as-
Yeah. And so, we like to wear hats.
Yeah,
Hats
there you
are
go.
good.
Well,
Yeah.
you have a good bald head, though. It's working for you.
Thank you,
We'll
Tom.
talk to you soon down the road.
Hey, thanks, guys. Appreciate the time.
All right. There he is,
Thanks,
John Gaskins. He'll be back for games this fall.
Cool.
Comes back for at least one or two games every single year, and he's fun to hang out with. I miss him. We spent 5 years of radio time together right here on 93.7 The Ticket.
Yeah.
And it was magic. Some good times with Bo Pelini and some terrible times with Mike Riley. But all the basketball times were just basically terrible.
Yeah, true.
Of
course,
but
outside,
what can you do?
Outside of 4 years, 5 years probably,
Yeah.
in the history of Nebraska
I
basketball.
miss Danny Nee in that era. But
Yep.
you know what? There's hope. But Fred needs two more. He needs two more big fish out of the portal. Not just high school kids, I think. He needs two more out of the portal. We'll see how it goes. He lost Wrightsell today.
Yeah, if he gets a point guard, I think next year is going to be interesting.
Yeah. Point guard, even if they don't have a true point guard, I think Salas could work. But we'll see. Let's get to break and finish out. We haven't done Get Off Milan. We have a couple other things to deal with. That you had a story that I want to talk about as we come back from break. You want to pitch that now?
Well, yeah, basically, how good is Nebraska and other schools at developing talent? It's a story that was on The Athletic, and we will talk about it when we come back.
The Butchery by Venue is Lincoln's premier specialty grocers. Take the quality of Venue home with you with our hand-cut steaks, handcrafted burgers, and locally sourced offerings. Browse our wide selection of specialty products designed to enhance your dining experiences with cheeses, spices, sauces, and more. We also have an exclusive collection of liquors, whiskeys, and bourbons at prices you're sure to love. Stop in to the Butchery by Venue today, located in our Venue at Home storefront at 70th and Pioneers, just 2 doors down from Venue Restaurant and Lounge.
Nebco is hiring CDL drivers for Ready Mix Concrete, Husker Concrete, and Beatrice Concrete. Nebco offers great pay, medical, and retirement benefits, paid time off, and we pay for CDL training. Apply today to earn an average total compensation of $50,000 to $60,000 your first year driving. From Nebco's beginnings in 1908, it's the employees that have formed the company's solid foundation. Start your career today. Visit nebcoinc.com. That's NEBCOINC.com.
Working at Continental in Lincoln isn't a job, it's a career. And right now they've raised wages again and they're hiring for production operators at $24.11 per hour, which grows to $28.27 per hour within 3 years. Skilled trade positions now start at $32.76 per hour with opportunities to make more based on certifications. Continental also has salary jobs available and great benefits, plus medical and prescription costs at very low premiums. Dental, vision, and life insurance are offered at no premium cost to the associates with increased bonuses and vacation for new hires. To learn more or to apply, go to continental-jobs.com with keyword Lincoln. Come work at Continental today.
Welcome back, Husker fans. Eustace Body Shop is happy to welcome the best fans in college football back to Lincoln. With gold-class certified service, OEM parts, and free loaner cars, Eustace Body Shop can call the right plays to keep you in the game. Whether it's in Lincoln at 88th and Highway 2 or at any of our other 5 locations across Nebraska, Eustace Body Shop can help get you back on the road. Go Big Red.
The most recommended Eustace Body Shop. That's who we are.
There's nothing quite like the Mercado by Certified Piedmontese beef. The Mercado offers unique ingredients you can't find anywhere else, open every day from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. The full-service butcher shop and retail store is wonderful for meat lovers with their exclusive certified Piedmontese beef and assorted sausages, plus other quality meats, including pork, chicken, and a wide range of the freshest seafood. Plus, every Friday from 11 to 2, the Mercado serves up the best lunch in town on their Friday Feast menu. Stop in at the Mercado today at 84th and Havelock or visit their website at cpmercado.com to see current deals.
Back to the Sunday Rewind with Tom and Mike.
That's old school.
Yeah?
No school like the old school.
On 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Welcome back to the Husker Rewind. I'm Mike Belby. That is Tom Stevens. Hello. You can catch us every Sunday from 5 until 7. And we cover just a lot of stuff, although we do not cover. Hang on, I got to make sure I get it right here. Scott said if we cover everything, we need to cover midget wrestling. And I'm like,
is midget wrestling really big right now? That's kind of is that big? Is midget wrestling big right now? That was an odd statement to make.
I was laughing as you were starting to say it because I knew where you were going. Sean and Bismarck off the Sutter Heyman text line. I'm not going to read exactly what he said. I'm just going to kind of paraphrase that he thinks the offensive line is still a pretty big work in progress.
You know what? It's a little harder to tell with Tony White and the way that he plays defense, because it feels like a defense, and we'll learn more about it as we go along. It just tries to blow up gaps. One of the offensive linemen said that he spent 30 plus hours, or especially early on in the film room, trying to figure out the defense because it's so confusing to go against. That feels like an excuse, but it also feels like a defense that could cause some havoc, theoretically. I mean, it's so different from a lot of defenses that you see. And so I just wonder if part of the excuse, and again, it's an excuse for the offensive line, is they're trying to deal with such a new philosophy here.
Princewell Umanmielen, Cameron Lenhart, Maverick Noonan, and MJ Sherman are going to cause a lot of problems.
Yeah, and all those guys, what they all have in common, I think, is, well, AJ's is he still a freshman? He's a sophomore probably now.
AJ Rollins, yeah.
Princewell is a freshman. Maverick Noonan is a freshman.
Linhart, freshman.
Linhart, freshman. Kai Wallen, who I thought showed up.
Yeah.
I don't know that we've talked enough about Kai Wallen. I thought he played really well.
Yeah, I had him. I had Sincere Safula as well. Corey Collier was another guy that made a couple of plays. Elijah Judy. Sipple said that as well. He said Elijah Judy's the guy that, man, you just there's something there. And then on the offensive side of the ball, I like Ben Scott at center. He looks like he's going to be a difference maker. Billy Kemp is definitely going to be probably our number one guy, him or Marcus Washington.
That's a position I do worry about.
Yeah.
Who's going to step up? I think they have a talent, but Gilbert dropped a couple of passes. He dropped a couple of passes in the scrimmage that I saw the Saturday before.
Yeah.
I think he's athletic, but there's a concern. Borkircher looked good.
Yeah.
It's just the wide receivers do concern me a little.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
So the Athletic ran an article earlier this week about basically who is 3-star U, who is 4-star U, 5-star U. The spin of the story is who develops talent. And they break it out, 5-star talent that was drafted in the NFL, what schools had however many number of guys and how many were drafted, the percentages. Yeah. And then the 5-star, the most that had the least. And they did it with 5 stars, 4 stars, and 3 stars.
Interesting.
Stanford had 5 of the 6 5-stars, including Andrus Peat, whose little brother, by the way, is in Lincoln right now.
Yeah.
He's the number.
He's a basketball player.
He's a basketball player. He's the number 3 ranked player in the country in the class of 2025. Anyway, Stanford, 5 of their 6, so 83.3% of their 5 stars got drafted in the NFL. When you get to some, the heavy hitters, you're looking at Clemson only had 16, but 12 of them were drafted. A&M had 11, 8 of them were drafted. Bama, 44, 38 were drafted, 86.4% there. And that's tops. So bottom line is the top schools take the 5-star guys, they get them into the NFL. The bottom, A&M, 17 guys that they signed that were 5 stars, only 4 made it into the NFL draft or were drafted in the NFL. And this is something for people that think Lincoln Riley and USC are going to be something. Yeah. Oklahoma, 12 guys, 5 stars, only 3, only 25%, second worst percentage out of any other school.
Well, the good news is Nebraska didn't have any 5 stars in that period of time, right?
Pretty much.
You wouldn't have to worry about it.
Guess what, though? They had 67 4 stars.
Ooh, how'd they develop those guys?
4.5%, 3 of them. Worst in the in major college football during this time frame.
Is all this study under Frost would be the time period of Frost?
It covers Mike Riley and I think maybe a year of Bo Pelini, but Mike Riley and Scott Frost.
Like we didn't know that. The guys weren't getting better. I mean, but it is weird that it's that bad. I wouldn't have thought it's that bad.
Yeah,
that's bad.
That was alarmingly bad. I knew we'd be like in the top 10 or the bottom 10 there. I had no idea we would be like number 1 running away as the worst.
Right. And when you
developing
say
program,
Nebraska's not developing, where would you start? Would you start with the coaching itself, the weight room, the culture?
Yes.
Yes. So all of it.
Yeah. Well, bottom line, I mean, we can talk about what was here for the last 5 years and what got developed outside of Cam Jurgens. I mean, I'm sorry, there's not a lot of wins there for Nebraska as far as developing talent.
Those will argue. There are people that will argue. Look at all the close games. 3-9, the best worst team in the history of college football.
Great.
That if you develop them a little bit more, and you did hear the comment, or at least I heard the comment of Matt Rule saying, you know what, I got to credit the last coaching staff or the staff, the high school coaches of these kids. Yeah. I'm not taking all the credit for why we're practicing how I like.
But he wasn't talking about how they had developed as football players. He was talking about their understanding of the game and how hard they work.
Yeah.
So that's great. You explained it to him, but you didn't show him how to do it right.
Right. Well, in some cases, it's just like, have you ever had a teacher and she's trying to explain something to you and you don't get it? And then a new teacher comes in, explains it in a different way.
Yeah.
And you understand it. I mean, that's what coaching is, right? Yeah. That they explain it or motivate you in a way where the light turns on.
Yeah.
And
I agree.
How many years has BTN come to town, those football preview shows?
Yeah.
And they say, Nebraska, man, they look good.
They look good.
They look good. And then you started to see those comments, like the coach wouldn't put his name on it. He would say, beast coming out of the locker room.
They're the old bus team.
Yeah, but they look like little bunnies when you're actually playing football with them.
Yeah.
So you heard those comments for years.
The one response I get to the people that say, hey, we were the best worst team ever, the best 3-9 team, blah, blah, blah. I have one question. If you can answer it and convince me that means something, the question is exactly how many of the 9 one-score games that they lost 2 years ago did they win? Because at the end of the day, the wins are all that matter.
It was incredible watching some of those games. Like I remember I've told you this story before. My wife called me. They're about to beat Iowa a couple of years ago at home. And I said, Heidi, they're not going to win. They're not going to win. And immediately they blocked the punt. And she's going, how do you know? How do you know this? I've seen this movie before. I've seen this movie too many times.
That and Avengers, we watch it over and over again.
We should leave, and then I'll come back in 2 weeks, and you come back next week.
I'll come back next week with a brand new show, too, 7 o'clock, called The Finish Line.
I'm leaving. I'll be in Tampa next week, but Mike will take over and have a fabulous show. We're leaving.
All right, man. Have a good week. Enjoy Tampa. See ya.
Experience the Landmark difference with the next level of dealer support. Landmark, your local John Deere dealer, continually works to have parts on hand the first time you walk in the door.